What's up, guys? Welcome back to Bourbon Blind. We got DJ from Wild Rare Breed 101 right here, and Bryant on Bourbon somewhere right in here, if my screen's right, if it correlates for you guys. That's got to go. Hush you. I don't know how else to get the chat to show up, so I try and keep everyone included.
Yeah, mute it. Yeah.
Anyway, so what's been going on with you guys?
Well, staying busy, writing blog posts, keeping up the Patreon content, and trying to finish up my book, at least the rough draft of it. So it's been a busy time for me.
A book, you say? Tell us about that.
Oh man, are we going to go into that already? Okay.
we can save it till later.
Okay. Well, I'm working on a wild turkey book. I've been working on a wild turkey book. It's I'd say it's getting close. I have probably of the core of the book is probably 75% ready to go. And then the other 25% is finishing up a few chapters. And then I've got some sidebar things I want to play with. But it's coming along. I'm going to be working on it hard over the next week or so. So don't expect a huge blog post coming this Tuesday. I'm going to keep up my content, but I really want to kind of focus on that over the next week.
Dude, I got to say, you are on top of those blog posts and like keeping everyone on Patreon and stuff up to date. Like,
I try. It's fun for me. So I think that, that's the most important thing. If you're not having fun, then, what are you doing it for? So,
right. See, I like making videos. I really don't like writing. All my English teachers used to say like, "Oh, you are so good at writing." And I'm like, I don't enjoy it though.
Well, yeah, I mean, do what you love, and drink what you love.
Right. Got some 101 here. We're doing good.
Yeah. I'll let you segue into when you're ready into what I've got. So we'll go from there.
I don't know what you poured.
Okay. Well, we were going to talk about the Booker's 30th tonight. Yeah, we were going to talk about the Booker's 30th, which I know is not turkey, but we've got a little segue we're going to do there.
Brian, is that what you got?
Absolutely. Y'all know me. I'm Mr. Anti-LE, but this one I had to pour at a bar, and it was impressive enough that I needed to work some back channels and procure one.
So you had to go talk to some speakeasy somewhere and get it.
Yep, I had to talk to an out of state friend who was very gracious.
That's awesome.
Yep.
I'm gonna finish what's in this glass, and I'm gonna pour mine then. If you guys are going right in.
Yeah, it's what surprised me about it was when I heard the announcement of Booker's 30th. I knew right away I wanted it because I'm a Booker's fan anyway. But what I found intriguing was that it was originally announced as a much higher age-stated bourbon, and then there was a change, and there was going to be some addition of like some 9-year, I believe, into it. And a lot of people were kind of ho-humming about that. But I'll be honest with you, I'm very glad they did that because it really made it special. I think that, of course, I don't know what it tasted like before they did that, but I can tell you what it tastes like now. And
right.
This is excellent bourbon. It really is. And I know everybody knows me as the turkey fan, and that is what I love the most, and that is where my heart's at. But I have to admit, there is some very, very good beam stuff out there. This is one of the best, in my opinion. And it's more of a barrel strength Baker's in profile to me than it is the typical Booker's. At least the typical Bookers that we've had over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
What was really, I don't want to hog the mic, but one more thing that really struck me when I first had it was I poured a glass and I set it, down for a little while, let it rest. And I came back to it and I was nosing it. And as I was nosing it, I was holding the box and I was reading the box, and it talked about how it was made with reclaimed wood from beam rick houses. And the words, Booker once walked these floors. It just hit me. And I mean, it was a semi-emotional event. I'm not kidding. I mean, that wasn't like I broke down. I was just like, wow, I just got heavy for a minute. I was like, this is really cool, you know,
Right.
to know that, you know, this juice, you know, was made back when Booker was running things. The box is a tribute to him. The whole thing really is a tribute to him, you know, not just by name, but in form. And it kind of all hit me. And then to have that first sip, it was really special. I mean, I think it's a very special whiskey.
It is. It really is. I mean, like you said, like there's a lot of history that goes in there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So someone was asking Bryant if you've had each of the 2018 releases of Booker's.
No, I have not. I had Kathleen's batch, I think. No, was that the last of 20? Yeah. I've had Kathleen's batch. And then
That
I
was
had
number one.
And then what was the third one? I know Kitchen Table was 4.
Backyard Barbecue.
Backyard Barbecue. I got a sample of Backyard Barbecue in some I can't remember. I can't keep track of where all the samples come from. I like Dave. I generally like Booker's. Booker's and I got off to a rough start back in 2004 when I was trying to get into bourbon, and I bought a bottle of Booker's, and I'd pour it into a rocks glass and take a big old gulp of it, and it'd taste kind of like kerosene. Like, I just can't drink whiskey, I guess. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. There was no bourbon blind to guide to, you know, all the resources that people have now to get into it, the tasting glasses and all that other stuff. But the price hike, I know, soured kind of a lot of people, and you'd see a new release and it was $49 is no thing to pick one up. Now you see them, and in my market, they're $80 to $85. So you're pushing, you know, over 90 out the door. And it's not as easy as a buy when it's 6 years, 2 months.
Right. Yeah. Like it's almost kind of for. Now I will say, like when you compare it to like the old Ezra 7-year, I think the Booker's taste way better. Way better.
Yeah, I haven't had the barrel strength Ezra yet, so
I was impressed with it. Not to get too far down the rabbit hole, but looking on the back of this is the Booker's 30th. It's 70% 9-year-old and 30% 16-year-old. And like Dave was saying, initially this was going to be an all 16-year release, and I guess it was just too oaky or too off or
right.
whatever. And it I don't want to say frustrates me a little bit, but like, they're putting out so much 6.5 year Bookers, and it's like, so this is what 70% of this is 9-year stuff. Like, why can't we get something like this more? Why do we have to wait every 5 years for something like that?
I see where you're coming from, Bryant, but you got to remember that Booker's traditionally, you know, Booker liked his bourbon 6 to 8 years, and so to be true to Booker's, you know, to be true to Booker himself, you have to kind of stick with that program, and I think it even says on the label, you know, this bourbon is 6 to 8 years or whatever. Yeah. I think that having the older whiskey and the special releases is a good call. Maybe they could do them more often because, you know, you have the 25th and the 30th and the secondary goes crazy. It's like maybe you could do like an LE every year without Booker's LE every year. Yeah,
I mean, do 3 of your standard, and then every year, you know, have your, you know, around, you know, bourbon season, have that fourth quarter release be something that's more in that 8 to 9 year profile.
Yeah, that would be nice.
So here's a question. Like when you look at the Booker's label, it has like a lot of times like 6, 7, 8 different places that these barrels come from, but it says, you know, 6 year, 3 month, 2 day. Like that's just technically the youngest one. So unless all of those different locations and everything were from the exact same batch, there may very well be some older stuff in there. Because I don't think it says the age, if I remember right.
And it'd be interesting to see what the oldest stuff I mean, they give you the youngest, but you know, if anybody from Beam's paying attention, you know, that'd be cool to see kind of that age range, because that 7 to 8 year, 9 year for Beam really seems to fit a profile. A local store here to David and I are about an hour down the road. They did a Knob Creek pick that was 9 years, 9 months, DJ. And I thought it was really, really good, but I've had some Knob Creeks that are in that 13, 14 year range. And some people really, really like that oaky profile. Yeah. It's not one that I care for at all. But that 7, 8, 9 really seems to be a sweet spot, for Beam for as far as what I enjoy.
So asking for a friend, he's a user on here, brought up a really good point. He said Booker's is a tougher sell now that you can get 14-year, again, 13, 12-year Knob Creek at 120 proof for half the price of Booker's.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, the only thing about and this is just from my experience, just because it's older, it's not better. I've had plenty of Knob Creek 13-year-old, 12-year-old. I think I even had one 14-year-old that was just kind of like, yeah, this is a little bit too woody and earthy and dry and tannic for me. Maybe somebody else. The Knob Creek picks that I've liked tend to be a little bit younger than that. Not young, but younger than that 13, 14-year mark. Now, that's not saying that I haven't had a couple, great ones that were mature. But just because it's older doesn't mean it's better,
No, that's definitely true. Like, some of the people doing barrel picks, whether it be Four Roses or Knob Creek, whatever, and they'll pick an 8.5-year barrel over a 13 or 12-year barrel because it just plain tasted better.
And the best way to do it is to do it blind, as you know. Okay, don't just like the pick that you were talking about, Bryant, from Lexington Beverage Outlet,
the A-team.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Adam had me come in after he had already chosen the barrel, and Kevin actually put 3 samples before me, and he said, "Which of these 3 would you pick?" And it was just straight up blind. And I ended up picking the one that Adam picked, and it was not the oldest one. There was one that was much older, but it just the profile to me was better. So
right, and I noticed too. Like for me, it seems like when they're stored really high up in the rick house, that age does not do it justice.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it gets to a certain point and then it needs to be bottled and gone. You know what I mean? Like it's not. I had a 14-year, like Bryant was saying, I had a 14-year Knob Creek pick lately, and it was just super acidic. Like it beyond tannins and wood, like it was just straight up acid. And I was like, I went in expecting to buy a couple bottles, and I was like, I really don't enjoy this a whole lot.
Right.
Like, and some people really like it, and it's a thing, and that's cool. But I just I couldn't do it.
Yeah, the Knob Creek to me has a lower floor and a higher ceiling than a lot of the other single barrels that like Four Roses, Russell's Reserve, of course.
Yeah.
Where they have a very high floor and a high ceiling. Knob Creek to me, now this is just to me, the floor is lower. Okay, they can have just as high of a ceiling. You just don't get those stellar picks as often as you do with say Four Roses, especially Four Roses a couple years ago. To me, some of the Four Roses picks lately that I've had, I've been like, yeah, this is good. I mean, it's not mind blowing, but some of the ones I had like 2014 or so, ooh, man, those were great. When they were doing the 14-year and 15-year picks, and not again, age isn't a thing, but with Four Roses, there is something about it handles the age very well with the Four Roses picks, in my opinion. Whereas like something like Knob Creek doesn't really handle the age as well as often.
Well, and part of that's their rick houses. I mean, they're the single story. Well,
that's correct.
6 ricks high, which would be 2 traditional floors. So
plus we're talking about Jim era too, when Jim was picking the barrels. So
I mean, you don't have that 6th or 7th floor where it's just getting nuked for however long.
So, out of curiosity, what is the rough age on the Russell single barrels?
8 to 10.
Okay.
Yep.
That makes sense.
8 to 10. Yeah. Every once in a while, you'll get one that, especially when they were first doing the single barrel program, the private barrel selections, you had some that were in the 11-year range. At least I'd ask Eddie about it. And you had some that were pushing 11 years or a little bit over when they first did the single barrel private selects for Russell's Reserve.
Those tear labels.
Yeah. Some of those kind of, Lincoln Road had one that was from Rickhouse A. Tyrone Rickhouse A, and it was over 11 years if I remember right, or it was getting close to 11 years at least when I talked to Jamie, and that was a phenomenal pick. But for the most, you'll find them around in the 9 to 10 years, so it'll be like 9 years and a few months. That's real common. Now lately with the Camp Nelson stuff, you're seeing a lot more, borderline 9 where it's 8 years. In so many months, kind of like with the pick that I had, the one in a century, and then a lot of the other CNA and CNF picks have been 8 years. Like
I've liked a lot of the MGP stuff in like the 8 to 10 year range.
Yeah,
over the 10, over like the 11, 12 year range.
Yeah, it depends with the MG with the Smooth Ambler old Scout stuff that's from MGP. when you have some of those 11-year picks, I like the ones that were the very low proof.
Yes.
Where it was like in the upper 90s for like 11, borderline 12 years. It almost had a little bit of, it reminded me of some classic turkey in a way. Not that it straight up tasted like wild turkey, but it had that classic turkey vibe in there. And I ended up buying several of them, and I burned through them. I think I have one left. Been holding on to it.
Yeah, I've got a few more set back, but I certainly wish that I'd bought more. But I agree with Dave 100%. Those, especially the sub 100 proof ones, are really special.
Mm-hmm.
But you'd see them at 103, 104. There was a Bell Mead pick here in town. There was a 10-year that was 100.7 at cast strength, and that's just, I don't know. I like that much more than I like Elijah Craig barrel proof. Just for me and what I like to drink, not right, wrong, or indifferent.
Right.
And for anybody curious at home, I can tell you Booker's 30th is a good deal better than No Hard Times.
I was just about to say, what do you guys get on the nose of this Booker's 30th?
Well, like I said, to me, it reminds me more of Baker's than it does Booker's, but it's more like a barrel strength Baker's, and I get, but it's much richer.
It's sweet,
and in some
for Booker's.
It's much sweeter. If it's got a fruitier vibe than a standard Booker's.
I get like a chocolate.
And here's what's really weird. What it reminds me of when I'm not thinking about it, like if I'm just picking it up and I'm just like forgetting what's in my glass, it reminds me in a lot of ways of Russell's Reserve 2002 on the nose. Now, once it hits the palate, we're talking about a totally different adventure. But I mean, on the nose, it has some of that spicy wood. You know, that you get like a spice box.
Kind of a muted sweetness. It's sweet for Booker's, but it's not a cherry bomb. It's not.
No, it's very well balanced.
Yeah. Oh, they did a super job.
Yeah, adding the 9-year was a very smart move. It was a very smart move. It's an excellent batch, and I wish they would do more like them. And I think that and I don't want to get off beam, too quick, but I think that it's important to note, me being a turkey person, that the Beams and the Russells have a very close relationship, and I respect their tenure in the industry, and I think that this is a very nice tribute to Booker. And as y'all know, that Booker and Jimmy and Parker Beam and Elmer T. Lee, they really almost single-handedly saved the bourbon industry by hitting the road back when nobody wanted it. And I think that, as a turkey fan, I think having a nice glass of Booker's is something that, Jimmy would be happy with because they're a great family, just like the Russells, with a nice legacy there. And they make great whiskey. I know a lot of people give Jim Beam White Label a hard time, but Jim Beam White Label wasn't made for us,
Yeah.
If I had to have probably a second favorite distillery, a couple years ago, I probably would have said Four Roses. But to me, I think my heart is with Turkey and then Jim Beam next. I just really like the premium, products that they make. It's very nice.
So DJ Rarebird, there's some people in the chat that are calling for you to do some Kentucky Spirit picks this year.
Oh man, well,
especially they're saying Rick House K.
Okay, so the thing is, I have to first get over the bottle.
Yes. Oh God.
So I don't want to dig this stuff up, man. But that bottle is just
ugly as homemade sin, man.
God, it's just lazy design. I mean, it's just lazy design. I will say that I did send an email. I did talk to Campari about this, and I was told, hey, if you've got suggestions, we'd like to hear them. So I typed up, an email with my suggestions on how I think that they could make Kentucky Spirit better. And I'll go ahead and tell you what they are. The first thing is non-chill filtered. If you're going to do a 101 single barrel, you've got to make it stand out over 101. which right now is going to be hard to do.
Yeah.
101 tastes good. So non-chill filtered is going to go ahead and give you a notch up. Okay. Second thing is they need to put not just the bottled on date, they need to put the barreled on dates. Okay. Because nerds want the info. Okay. We don't just want it on private picks. We want it on everything.
If it's a single barrel, to the Rick House, to the what tier it's stored on.
Well, they've got all that on Kentucky Spirit, but they don't have the barreled on date. So we don't know how old it is. Okay. So that's number 2. Okay. Number 3 would be that they use a glass. If they can't use the turkey feather tail design, okay, if that's a problem, okay, go back and look at Export Tradition, okay, or Export Kentucky Legend, or what I maybe call the half donut, where it's like this kind of bottle where it has more of a Prohibition style or 20s style glass, like you see, like or more like 30s style post Prohibition, where you have those 4 Roses bottles, where it's kind of like this, you know, kind of an hourglass kind of design with a sticker in the middle. And okay, that should be cheaper to make than this feather thing. Okay, so you get a throwback glass. Okay, it's not the feather, but at least you get some kind of throwback thing to something that Jimmy actually, you know, had a hand in.
Was part of.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the fourth thing is make the cork work with the old Kentucky Spirit cork. I know it's a little thing, but it's like that little touch, that little thing that says, hey, this is still Kentucky Spirit. Kentucky Spirit has that big wide cork with the turkey on the top, the stopper. So just make it match. So, you know, it's kind of like we're going to bring this over from the previous design. I think if they were to do those 4 things, Kentucky Spirit would like be cool again. But, you know, those were just my ideas. You know, there's no guarantee that any of that's going to happen. I'm not counting on it, but and there may be some better ideas out there. Just because I think those are great doesn't mean everybody else does, and somebody may have some better ideas.
Yeah, but hey, I mean, you know, they asked for input, and you gave them your input.
That's right. I think anything's better than what they got going on in a few months here. Or actually, I think the first run came out, didn't it, Brian?
Yeah, one of our mutual friends said they started bottling it about a month ago.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing those will start showing up here
any day now.
Too long. Yeah. Rare Wild Turkey Kentucky Spirit deserves better than Rare Breeds hand-me-downs. Mm-hmm. And I'll just leave it at that. There's a better way to do things than that.
And one more thing. Okay. So Kentucky Spirit was the answer to Elmer T. Lee's Blanton's. When Blanton's came out, it had this iconic bottle with the handwritten script, the pewter top, okay, in a box. When Kentucky Spirit first debuted, it was in a box, okay. It had handwritten, info on the neck label, yep, and a pewter top. It was their answer to Blanton's. And then they kind of slowly started changing it. Like, well, we're not going to do the box anymore. And it was like, well, we're not going to do the pewter top anymore. We're going to do a dark wood cap. And then we're not going to do a color turkey anymore. We're going to do a monochrome turkey. And, and then a lighter cap. And so there's no more staining there. So it's like they just keep cheapening it and cheapening it and cheapening it.
And the price kept going up.
Right. Blanton's has just stayed the same. I mean, it's either got the hose or it's got the, the box or the bag. It's like they kind of dress it up, And other than that, it's pretty much stayed the same. But Kentucky Spirit's just kind of done this little thing. And now it's just like, it just dropped off. It's like, oh, let's just use the Rare Breed bottle. And it's like, that was smart. Were you trying to kill it? It was already not doing well. I'll get off that because, I try to stay positive. And I hope that maybe, Campari listens. The juice inside is all that matters, but how are you going to get people to taste the juice if they don't have the appeal to buy it?
That's when I was griping about it on Instagram a few times. Turkey's official account said, well, the juice is what counts, and I agree with that. But I mean, does that mean you're going to start one plastic bag box? I mean,
right?
How you present
Where
it?
Do you draw the line? Right.
How you present it in this market counts for something, especially when you're hanging a $57 or $58 price tag on a single barrel that's the same price as your Russells, which is a profile that I prefer. I'm not going to say
That's
better.
right.
I'm going to say a profile that
It's
I
hard to
prefer.
compete with Russell's Reserve. Yes.
And as Kyle mentioned earlier, I mean, you're talking Knob Creek single barrel has an age statement. It's got 19 more proof points on it, and it's $15 less in my market. I mean, I can go get 4 rows of single barrels for $42, $43, and rare breeds 57 to 59. So it just, I don't know.
Rare breeds that much for you?
Or not rare breed, Kentucky Spirit.
Okay, I was about to say, man.
Well,
That's what I was saying. Man, I'm glad I don't live where you live.
Yeah.
They're in the same bottle. I get confused. So.
Yep. Yeah.
It seems like they're not doing it any favors.
No. I don't think it was performing well lately anyway, because as you said, it had to compete with Russell's Reserve single barrel, and so I think that it's hard to compete with that,
Yeah.
But then changing the design, and then what they changed it to wasn't anything even on the same level. I guess, it makes you wonder how much they care about it continuing forward. Hopefully, maybe they'll listen to some of the ideas I had. And like I said, there could be some better ideas out there. Maybe someone is working on some things. We just don't even know it because this TTB shut down. There's just nothing coming through.
Yeah.
We don't know what's coming. So nobody does.
There might not be any LEs in 2019. Good thing we've all got a bunch of these hanging around.
Yeah, it's sad.
DJ, do you want to talk about the Beam and Russells?
Well, I think that I did mention something about it a few minutes ago, but I'll close it up with this. There is a nice video on YouTube. I shared it with my patrons, and I think I shared it on Twitter too. There is a video with Fred and Jimmy that was an interview by Whiskey Advocate at Whiskey Fest this past year, and it sums it all up. It really does. And you can just see that the two families, the Nose and the Russells, have a genuine appreciation for each other, not just in what they make, but in who they are. As Fred said in that video, Jimmy is kind of like his dad now. Now that Booker's gone. But the point in that video that really, I think, sums up the whole thing, and I've kind of briefly glossed over this, was that it was Booker, Jimmy, Parker, and Elbert T. Lee hitting the road. They are the ones that we really should be thanking right now for what we have, because Bourbon went through a very rough phase, and they really, through their hard work, kept it on the map. Just kept it out there and said, hey, this is a quality spirit. And I think that people forget about that. They get caught up in this hype stuff. They get caught up in chasing the limited editions and the BTACs and the Pappies and, all these NDP releases that are just coming out all the time that are like super high dollar. And if y'all watched that Bourbon Pursuit a couple weeks ago with the barrel broker, he's talking about, the way to be successful now, if you're starting up as an NDP, is, you have to hit the LE market right off the bat. Like, don't make anything less than $100. That's the market now, which is crazy, because I have a 1983 Wild Turkey 101 8-year, 500 milliliter, so it's a half liter back when they were doing the half liter bottles, and it's got $5 on the tag, $5 for 83 101 8-year. To go from that to $100+ bottle where you don't know where it came from, you don't know how old it is, it's just exciting, and
Right.
so everybody has to go get it, and then it sells for more than that on the secondary.
And those guys were really the keeper of the flame, I mean, and you look at the Bourbon, resurgence, and there's a really interesting article in the Bourbon Plus magazine about, Maker's Mark and Samuels and how they were, working to make, bourbon cool and, paying a little bit more for bourbon. And, there was, Booker and Jimmy, not cutting any corners. There was, Eddie said, he thought his name was No for 10 years. That, we need to change our mash bill. We need to put out lower proof. We need to do this. And Jimmy Russell's like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go in the barrel at 107. We're going to put a good, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years on it. After they drop the 8-year age statement. We're not changing what we're doing. And if we keep doing that and being true to ourselves, people will come around to that. And that's.
I should probably give credit to Samuels he was more of a marketing guy.
Absolutely.
And he did it better than anyone else. I mean, I would give him that. He totally changed the way that bourbon is viewed by the general public.
Yeah.
And Maker's Mark is still very successful because of that. They only had one product for like ever, it seems.
Yeah. I gotta say the Makers their publicity and their marketing is like the best in the industry.
That's right.
They do a great job. It is. And I was actually at a bottle share the other night, and somebody had a bottle of Makers from 1980. And it was really good, as you would imagine. But their neck tag I thought was interesting, and it kind of encapsulated why they were successful. And it essentially said, congratulations, you have purchased one of these bottles. We're a small house. We don't make very many. This is sought after, so enjoy this, and we value each and every customer because we don't make enough stuff to not treat each and one of our customers like their family, and write us a letter, tell us if you like it, we'll respond back. It was
stuff.
Yep. So if anybody's been in sales, the Samuels were kind of outside sales and Jimmy was kind of inside sales. Jimmy was in there, making it happen. You know what I mean? Just staying true, keeper of the flame, along with Booker and Elmer and
I think Jimmy
Parker.
Yeah, Jimmy sold it just by being Jimmy. I mean, he would just go out and start talking to people, and they may have had this idea about what wild turkey was. And then they talk to Jimmy Russell and they're like, man, I want to go get some wild turkey now, just because he has a real, attractive personality where it's like, you want to just sit there and just talk to him and listen to him. And he's just genuine. He's just himself. Whereas with Samuels, I understand he has a very interesting personality. And he's very captivating. But what he did with print media at the time, especially, was just far beyond anybody else. Like people were kind of like they were like having to chase behind Maker's Mark on their advertising because Maker's advertising was just killing it. He kind of took that old '50s marketing, like Have you ever seen Mad Men?
Oh yeah.
It was like the print marketing was it was a serious game. He kind of took that. But then he like bumped it up and made it modern and like kind of punk in a way. It was like he just really changed the way to do it. And there's a lot to be said there.
Yeah, I mean, the Russells have always been, one that they really, they say this is our product and we're not going to change it. We're not going to, try and do the crazy stuff and the. You know what I mean? Like it's just, hey, this is what it is. We make it good. It is good. And, we don't have to try and, create all the hype and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Because they're not businessmen by default.
Right.
Startups. Yeah. And they're buying barrels off the brokerage markets, and they're like trying to make these special releases and high-end things. And that's fine, but that's not what Jimmy and Eddie do. They feel whiskey, they make whiskey and they make it good, and it is what it is. It's not a business that they're like, I'm going to just start this business and I'm going to do really well and I'm all about my business. It's about whiskey. Let's make good whiskey.
And did you catch in the Pursuit that broker mentioned, or it was in Pursuit in the last week or two, that it's not uncommon for Beam and Brown Forester to sell barrels back and forth, and that there's kind of that. He said Turkey and Makers are two that they keep their own stuff and they bottle their own stuff. Well, there's not a lot of trade.
Each other out. I can tell you that, and Jimmy's on the record saying that they help each other out.
Yeah.
So let's just throw a hypothetical out there. If you had a distillery that was short on barrels and they weren't maybe doing so well this is back in the old days. Okay. I don't know if this was, if they came to Jimmy and said, Jimmy, and, we're short on what we need to meet supply this year. You have any extra barrels that I guarantee you that he would have tried to make that work out for him. I'm not saying, what that transaction might be or if it ever even happened, but I would think that he would do what he could to help him out. And he's on record saying that. And they all did that for each other, and they all do that for each other still in whatever ways they're allowed to. We have a lot of corporate ownership now from a lot of, have foreign companies that own them. And so there may not be that ability to help like they used to, but I'm sure they would help in whatever way they could. So, just because they say they don't sell barrels, or buy barrels doesn't mean that that's 100% accurate.
Yeah. Just think how crazy it is to go back to 1996, which really wasn't that long ago. You had the Heaven Hill fire, and people were like, tell us what your mash bill is, bring your yeast over here, and we'll run it through our still.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've had the Brown-Forman Rittenhouse rye, and it was not for me. I had to give it away. I was like, okay. But hey, that's just off the subject there.
So anyway, I still got a little bit of this Booker's 30th in my glass. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I'm on my last one. I think I'm about to get into my Russells here. We each decided before we went live here that we were going to open a Russells or one that we already had open. I'm actually going to open one. I'm going to crack a seal on one. But I'll let y'all go first. What do y'all have?
I'll let Kyle do the honors, and I'll jump on it.
I have a store pick from MC's over in Chattanooga.
Cool.
No, Knoxville. Sorry, they're over in East Knoxville. And I got to say, I've had a few of their store picks, and they are always on point. They probably have the best 1792 store pick I've had. They're all over. I mean, they got.
What's the specs on it?
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't remember. I remember it was Warehouse H, and other than that, I lost the neck tag and had to write on.
We've all been there.
That's all I got for that.
H, but most of the H's I've had have been excellent.
Yep.
So, and it's good. It really
okay. Good. What you got, Bryant?
I've got a Camp Nelson A. Some guys here in Columbia. I didn't help pick this, but they picked it the same day that you picked yours, DJ. It's got the cool side sticker. We've got, I think, Homer in a hammock. There's a snake in a tree. I don't know what all that's about. But anyway, the Columbia Bourbon Collective, I think they did a really good job picking this. Happy to know those guys and be around them.
Cool.
It's definitely got that Camp Nelson prickle, which we'll talk about here in a minute.
Okay, so what I've got, just pop the seal here. This is one of my favorite Russell's Reserve ever. I had it through some samples from multiple people.
Oh, is that the Jamie and Dixon pick?
Close. The Jamie and Dixon pick is almost gone, unfortunately. This is Lincoln Road Package Store 15th anniversary. I don't know if you can see this. It's from House G. Okay.
Rumored to be Eddie's favorite.
This is an excellent barrel right here. 16027 from G, fourth floor. So it's right there in the middle pocket there. And I haven't had this one in a while. I've had it, like I said, through a couple samples, and I was able to luckily get a bottle from a very, very kind person. And wow, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you guys, I love Booker's 30th, but the nose on this, better. It's better. I'm gonna throw that out there right now.
I'm glad you kind of said that, because I was honestly thinking the same thing. Like,
yeah, I mean, that
Booker's 30th is really good. It really is. It is definitely something special. It's not something that they just, stuck a limited edition sticker on and called it a day. Like, it really is really good.
Yeah, Fred, if you're watching, I apologize. But high five, Eddie. This is good. God, this is good. I can't wait to review this one. I mean, I'm going to give it a little bit of time, a couple weeks, and let it sink in. But Jamie, if you just happen to be watching, damn, man, you did a great job on this one.
DJ, I'm going to need a little pinch.
Yeah. Okay. I'll have to get you one, man. I promise. This is an excellent pick. It really is. So if anyone in the chat has had the 15th anniversary G pick from Russell's Reserve, let everybody know what you think of it, because maybe I'm just biased or something, but to me, this is probably the best barrel that Jamie's picked, and Jamie picked good damn.
You just made the secondary price on that go up $100.
That's good. I mean,
thanks, Dave.
Both Dixon picks. I mean, and I like Dixon a lot. I really do. And his barrels were great. But this one here, this hits all the marks for me. Okay, enough about that. No, I'm eating up too much time.
No. I mean, that's why we're on here. You know what I mean?
It's
talk turkey. And so someone was saying on your Patreon, you have the breakdown of the rake houses and stuff for wild turkey.
It's not on my Patreon. It's on my blog.
Okay.
Go to the review of Fight Me, which was a pick, a single barrel Russell's Reserve. There you go, single barrel pick. If you go to that review, I break down a lot of the rick houses that I've had multiples of. Now, there's rick houses that are missing, of course, but I just didn't feel comfortable, typing up what my thoughts on those rick houses were if I'd only maybe had a sample or two. The ones that I'll put it on there, I'd actually had at least a couple to give it a general idea. And, as it goes with all of these things, it's very subjective. So, you have to take even things that I say, even though I love turkey so much and I've had a lot of wild turkey, you take it with a grain of salt, because you may have a different experience than me, and that's fine. All I'm doing is giving you my honest opinion on how I see it and how I smell it and taste it and everything else. And you don't have to agree with me. Really
I was reading some reviews on a new website that I found. I shouldn't say new website, new to me website, that had, just a bunch of general reviews of different bourbons and stuff. And I noticed like a lot of the wild turkey stuff just plain didn't do well. And I was like, well, obviously he just doesn't like that profile, because there's some stuff there like I would highly beg to differ on. You know what I mean? So, but like you said, like everyone drinks different stuff. Some people don't like Knob Creek. Some people don't like Four Roses. I mean, it's just kind of a
right. Everybody has their preference. You see it even more so what you're talking about in Scotch. If you ever dig into Scotch and Scotch reviews, I mean, it can get kind of, there can be some fights started there. I mean, and say, Macallan, 18 or whatever is the die for, it's the best thing ever made. But when someone comes in, oh yeah, that's total crap. And it's more polarized, in my opinion, than bourbon is.
So I was going to say one thing about that. I've noticed like Scotch drinkers, like they drink what they like, and like they're loyal to that brand, or
a lot of them are
maybe that small region, but like they don't for the most part, they don't want to branch out. Like, us as bourbon drinkers, I try and drink
everything.
I try and taste at least exactly.
Well, it depends.
Like, I want to taste everything. You know what I mean?
I think that there are some folks like that, but there are plenty of Scotch folks that try everything, including bourbon, and are very open minded. Especially like someone like Joshua Hatton or Johnstone Yellen of the Jewish Whiskey Company. Those guys, I mean, they're open to about anything. And they don't judge it based on specs. They don't judge it based on provenance. They judge it based on how does this thing taste. And they're very open-minded. And there's a lot of folks out there like that in bourbon and Scotch. There are some snobby Scotch drinkers. But
really, it should be that way.
Yeah, it should be that way. But there are snobby bourbon drinkers and there's snobby Scotch drinkers. And you're just going to have that happen,
I've got two thoughts.
I know too many snobby Scotch drinkers.
So one thing I've noticed with the whole like Scotch thing while we're talking about is I've noticed quite a few people that like Scotch and like they're migrating over towards bourbon, but there's not a lot of bourbon drinkers migrating towards Scotch.
Because Scotch.
I haven't found Scotch yet, but I like that all.
It's okay, you can say it.
See it that way.
It's just not. And to touch on an earlier comment, if you're a bourbon person, you don't like Four Roses, I can't trust you at all.
Yeah, no,
At all.
don't trust anyone that doesn't like Four Roses.
I understand turkey's not for everybody. It's certainly for us, and I'll extol its virtues. But that stuff that Rutledge was turning out, we were talking about some of the single barrels earlier. Like they got 10 recipes. Surely there's one that you can like. If you don't like any of them, then we probably not much to talk
Four
about.
Roses has my
If I had started.
but I have to give it to Jim Beam. I'm literally feeling the peanutty, nutty taste lately. I absolutely love Four Roses, but
So, DJ, someone just threw you under the bus, buddy.
Okay.
Something about you loving Ardbeg?
I love Ardbeg. I do. I will admit that there are, when you were talking about Scotch, okay, I don't branch out that often, but I do love a good peated Scotch. Every once in a while, I just have this craving for it, but I will tell you that Ardbeg 10 is the best value in peated Scotch on the market. People can talk about Lagavulin 16, and I just have to say, yeah, I've got Lagavulin 16 in my cabinet, and it's cool. But to me, Ardbeg 10, it just hits all marks for me. When
Is it something you have to be in the mood for, or do you just
have to be in the mood for it? I mean, 90% of the time I'm drinking not Wild Turkey, and then a few percentage points outside of that I might be on a different bourbon, and then a very small percentage I'm having Scotch. I do like. I'll go ahead and tell you now, if you're a bourbon drinker, and I don't want to spoil anything because I'm going to be doing a Google Hangouts with Joshua Hatton and Jason Johnson Young of the Jewish Whiskey Company in a couple of days, and I was going to talk about this transition from bourbon to Scotch, and if you're a bourbon drinker, what Scotches you might get into. But just briefly, two of my favorites are Ardbeg 10 and Abner. Those two, to me, polar opposite. The Abner is a sherry finished Scotch, non-age stated, but it's barrel strength, cask strength, I guess we're talking Scotch terms, and it has just loads of complexity. I mean, loads of complexity. And Brian, I think you might actually like Abelauer Abner. It has a very sweet profile for a Scotch. Okay, and then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have Ardbeg 10, which is very much like a smoky, a soily type of drink. And you just have to kind of be in the mood for it. But when you are, there's not a whole lot of things that compare for the money, because the Ardbeg 10, I can find that for like $45 around here. So
what's the proof on that?
On the Ardbeg 10, I believe it's 90-ish. I'll have to go back and look. But now you got to remember, now with Scotch, it's a totally different environment than it is with bourbon. And so things age very slow. I mean, they have a very cool, and moist environment. And so it ages different. So, it doesn't get up into these crazy numbers like you find with bourbon, where it's like 130 proof and stuff. You don't get that in Scotch. So at 80 proof, for a Scotch is actually a very full flavored Scotch, honestly. But 80 proof for a bourbon is like,
it's kind of watered down. David said that he'll stick with Wild Turkey 101, and everyone else is welcome to the Scotch.
My man.
90% of the time it's turkey. And there's
speaking about turkey, okay, well, before we get into another turkey, I'd love to ask you about asking for a friend. I got to say thank you to you. I just got a box in the mail today. He sent me over some bottles.
Awesome. Thank you. Like, you have no idea.
Super excited. Really appreciate that. Honestly, that's so, I didn't expect that. I mean, that's just awesome. So cheers to you.
I guess the Wednesday box wasn't as exciting, huh?
Right?
No, it was amazing. Like, he brought it in the house, and I was like, can we open it now? I was really, really thrilled to see the bottles that were in there.
So one thing I want to ask you about, DJ, is this Russell's Reserve rye.
Okay.
What can you tell us about it?
Okay. Well, you've got the single barrel rye there. And
I have the 101 around here somewhere too, and it's good. But
Can I get you another glass?
okay, so with the 101 rye, to me, that is just like if I want a solid daily sipper rye, 101 rye kills it. I mean,
But isn't that hard to get for most people?
it depends. Like where I'm at, I'm swimming in it. And Bryant, you probably the same way. I mean, it's everywhere. But in some other areas, they don't even get any. Like the state,
Or it's like restaurant only, right? Something like that.
And it's only available in liters too.
It's only in liters. But I think that you're going to see that change in time. They are making a lot more rye. You got to remember that Wild Turkey produced very little rye every year in comparison to their bourbon. We're talking about a very small percentage.
Oh yeah.
It was like 2 days a year they would run.
Yeah, it wasn't much at all, and now it's increased. So you're going to see that come around eventually. Now, what you just held up, the single barrel rye, is not easy to find. Now, it's easy to find in my area, but it is not easy to find anywhere else, and it is not cheap either. We're talking about a $60, $70 bottle,
Right.
but
That's amazing.
yeah, here's where I'm going to go with this. And if y'all have had Thomas Handy, you know where I'm about to hit here. People will pay $250, $350, $400 sometimes for Thomas Handy. Okay, the BTAC release. And in my opinion, I'm not saying that Russell's Reserve Single Barrel Rye is equivalent to Thomas Handy. Okay,
But it's better.
but
This is good.
it at least competes with it. I guarantee you, if you did a blind tasting and you put Russell's Reserve Single Barrel Rye, the barrel depending, of course, right up to THH, okay, and blind gave it to someone, you're probably going to have 50% of the time people picking the Russells. And then when you say, oh, by the way, you just passed over BTAC, they're going to be like, what? And that's
not even a thing.
The Russell's Single Barrel Rye is killer. And when I first had my first taste of it in 2015, I was impressed. But the last few bottles I've had have been amazing. I mean, if you go, I'll go ahead and give you this piece of advice. If you go to a store and they have multiple bottles of Russell's Reserve Single Barrel Rye, look for the date codes. Try to find some that are closer to now, and then hold them up and look at them and see which ones are darker. Because the last two I received, I should say, the last two I went and picked out, I went for the darkest ones. I picked some 2017s over 2015s, and they were notably darker.
This one is beautiful.
17 EG.
Yeah, and you're going to find all those single barrel ryes are going to be from E. But it's just, there's something there. Especially the last one I got. I had just had some Kentucky Owl 1, which Kentucky Owl 1 rye is an amazing rye. I will tell Dixon right now, people can talk whatever they want to talk. It to me was worth $120.
That's funny. I really like that Kentucky Owl rye.
The Kentucky Owl Rye 1, okay?
Yes, yeah,
that's worth the money. Now I can't say the same for. I had the second one. I had a sample of it for $200. It's just it's not there for me. But for the first batch, it was there. Now, one night I'd had a nice glass of that, and then I went to the Russells, and I was like, wow, okay, this holds its own. This is really good, And so and then the Russells is like what 60, 70. Without the hassle and all that. So, I think that it is very undervalued amongst the majority of the whiskey community. But
I would not hesitate to put this up against the 8, 10, 12-year-old Willet Rise one bit.
Yeah, I haven't had any of I'll be honest with you. This may shock people. I have not had Willet. I mean, it doesn't come around my area. And when it has, it was the 3-year rye or something, and I was just
the 3 and the 4-year batches.
I'm not paying that much for a 3-year rye. Sorry.
No, and honestly, I'm not a huge fan of them. The Willet Ryes, and even especially the actually,
I can't say because I haven't had them, but I haven't had the opportunity because when when the Willet, the high end Willet stuff comes in, the nice stuff, it's gone. It doesn't hit the shelves. I mean, the store owners have buddies, and it's gone. And I don't think South Carolina even sees it. I'm talking.
No,
about
I've never seen it.
And Georgia, Augusta gets it, but those things are already eaten up by people in backroom deals. So here's what it is.
So Cooper 57 asked, "Do you know the mash bill for the Wild Turkey Rye?"
Actually, if you go to my site, there's a mash bill breakdown link in the other sites.
Which your site is?
Rare1.com. And go to other sites, and Bourbon R has a mash bill breakdown. But then in some of my reviews, I mentioned it as well. But it's barely legal. I mean, it's just over 50%, rye, very low rye recipe.
I think Bruce tipped it on to John and Zeke at the Dad's not too long ago. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or not.
Yeah. It's kind of it's
like 52 or 54 and 32.
It's not. It's never been officially,
published,
put out there,
acknowledged. But it's more like just talk over the years. Folks talking to Jimmy, folks talking to Eddie, folks talking to who knows who, or rumor or whatever. But you can just taste it and tell there's not a whole lot of rye in Russell's Reserve rye. It's a very low rye.
So I just put in. I had a little bit of the Russell's Reserve left over, about a third, and then I put in about 2/3 of the rye. And it's a good mixture.
I bet.
It's really crazy because I have tried at home rye and bourbon mixes of Wild Turkey, and I've never really been that successful. I was able to match Forgiven pretty much, in my opinion, very, very close. And I've got that hack on my site. I'm just not a fan of it, but I was able to match it. I spent time working on it, and I was able to get really close to Forgiven through using 101 rye and the 81 proof bourbon. But I had someone send me a mystery sample a couple months back, and it just said Wild Turkey ? Guess what this is? And I was like, okay, I'll play the game. And I had it, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, what the hell is this? And I was just like, this is good. This has some spice to it. I'm like, this has to be a single barrel. This has to be some, single barrel that, and I forget what I ended up guessing. But it ended up being a 50-50 Wild Turkey 101, Wild Turkey 101 rye. And I felt kind of stupid. I was like, because I've done this before. And it just shows you, as you already know, because that's what your channel's already about. Blind really opens the doors to everything. It's kind of spooky going into something blind, because you think, well, am I going to make myself look like a complete ass on this?
I've done that. I've done that more than once.
But at the same time, man, does it just make things honest, And I will say that I don't know what years of 101 and 101 rye he had put in there, because that does make a difference, as y'all know, with turkey. It's changed over the years. But the 50-50 mixture that he made was excellent, and it really surprised me, and it had me thinking maybe I should start doing this. And so I've been playing a lot more with little home blends, and I posted that Long Branch Rare Breed blend, which kind of went crazy there, and people going nuts about it. And I thought, if anything, it made Long Branch better. I'm not necessarily saying it made Rare Breed better. It made the Long Branch better.
I tried it tonight. I liked it.
Yeah, it's good.
And the current Rare Breed out right now is just killing it.
I haven't had the 2018 Rare Breed.
What?
All right, the 2017 Rare Breed. So
I can fix that.
Well, it's going to come around, but don't go to any extra trouble. But it'll come around, because where we're at, turkey kind of sits for a while. So
speaking of the whole blind thing, Dylan was saying, can you please tell Eddie on his next barrel pick to do him blind? He said he went on a barrel pick with Eddie, and he was laying out information on the barrels as he was pouring them.
Well, when I did my tasting with Eddie, it was blind, and that was the way that I wanted it, and that was the way Eddie wanted it. So I don't know if it may be different when he hosts it for other groups, but when I picked 1 in a century, when we finally sat down, because we had a long little chit chat. And when we finally sat down to pour, I said, Eddie, I only want to do these blind. He goes, I wouldn't do it any other way. So
Right.
you
So
know,
maybe it was just that one, that one day. I know most of the barrel picks I've been on at different distilleries.
here's the thing: I've watched
They
a
do it blind.
well, one of our patrons recorded a tasting and posted it on the community a long time ago, James, and he was hosting a very large group. And so when you're hosting a very large group like that, and you have to go and you fill up 10 different glasses, you got to have a lot of stuff to talk about. So it wouldn't surprise me if he walks them through what he's pouring them in a large group like that. But when it's just two people sitting in front of Eddie, it's a little bit different situation, you know.
Right. And that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I went on a barrel pick at Heaven Hill, which was phenomenal, by the way. And then I did a Buffalo Trace Weller pick, and we did 2 Buffalo Trace barrels and 1 Weller barrel. And everyone's like, "Oh, dude, that must be amazing." And I was like, "It was good. Don't get me wrong. Like the whiskey was good, but the pick at Heaven Hill was much more free and open, where
Relaxed.
Buffalo Trace felt much more corporatized, if you know what I mean.
I've heard that, and I've never picked at those distilleries, so I wouldn't be able to say, but I've heard those same things.
Like, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't turn out going on another one. I would never turn out going on a pick and just
Maybe
about
pick.
anywhere. You know what I mean?
I've got several lined up. I'm actually doing some picks, not just turkey picks this year. I'm actually helping with some other picks this year at some other distilleries. So I can't get into all the details just yet, but it's going to be a fun experience for me. I'm looking forward to going around and seeing what all these different distilleries are like. I'm sure that my heart will stay with Wild Turkey, but bourbon is bourbon, and I think that helping the bourbon community out in supporting all of the different distilleries out there. It's not a competition. I'm not trying to just make Wild Turkey burn some other distillery to the ground. That's not what I'm trying to do. I just where my heart's at. It's what I love so much. But don't get me wrong. If I find a bottle from some other distillery that's excellent, I want it.
Promote it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to turn it down just because it's not from my favorite distillery.
That's what I love about bourbon. We all have our distilleries.
Mm-hmm.
We all have we love them. We'll promote them to the nth degree. But then again, you find a bottle you love and you're like, dude, this is amazing. Hey, you might want to try this.
Right. Yeah. You have an open mind is never a bad thing.
And like you were talking about, like the distilleries and stuff, especially, the older master distillers and whatnot, they're all in it together. Like you're talking about the Heaven Hill fire, and other distilleries were like, hey, do you need to use our rick houses? Do you need to use our still?
What can we do? What do you need to do?
Do you need some of our bourbon? Like, what do you need? Just let us help you.
And I hope it stays that way.
Where if that was Coca-Cola, Pepsi would have been like, sorry guys, hate it for you.
Well,
they $1 million. Sucks to you.
They had bottle shares back in the day where the only rule was you couldn't drink your own stuff. So Parker and Jimmy and Elmer and Booker, everybody'd have to bring a bottle, but you couldn't drink your own make.
I worry that
like that.
I seriously worry that might go away, and because it's so hyped now, and because it's so popular now, and there's money flying around everywhere now. Money flying in print media. There's money flying around on television now. There's money flying around everywhere.
All the venture capital and NDPs that are flooding into the market. I mean, really?
Yeah, and the older generation is going away.
Going back to what we talked about earlier, I mean, Freddie and Eddie are really the two.
But Freddie and Eddie aren't going to be here forever.
No, they're not. But they're the last connection to that generation.
Yeah, it makes me concerned about where we're going to go. Now, luckily, on Wild Turkey side, I think that Bruce, if any of you have not listened to the Dad's Drinking Bourbon podcast, I know y'all have, but if anyone out there has not listened to the Dad's Drinking Bourbon podcast with Bruce Russell, you're really missing out, because that is it really shines a light on what the future generation of Wild Turkey might be like. And then Joanne recently had a podcast with the Bourbon Show. And I think that if you take an honest listen at the next generation of Wild Turkey, I think Wild Turkey is in great hands. I've never talked to Freddie No, or I haven't even really listened to the podcast or anything with Freddie No, and I probably ought to, because my hope is that Freddie is going to carry on where Fred and Booker did. But I don't know about the long term in general for all of the distilleries, because the
Four Roses is on board. I will tell you that right now.
What's that?
After talking to Bryant, I think it's
Brett.
Brent.
Brett.
Awful. I think Four Roses is on board. I think that there's something with bourbon that has struck a node, and the newer generations are looking up to the older generations, and I'm hopeful that this will continue.
Are you talking about Brent Elliott from?
Yes.
Okay.
He's amazing.
I've never met him. I've heard great things about him.
Amazing. And I
hope
think
that it continues. I really do.
As long as we can keep at least a couple distilleries on the same thought process, that it's about the older generations, it's about continue this tradition of keeping this in the family, no matter what you're distilling, that it's all in the family, and that you should share, and that you should promote the bourbon, not necessarily the who's making what and make the profit.
I hope it stays that way. Yeah, I hope so. The bad thing is, the more money bourbon starts making, it draws attention. I'm just going to be honest with you.
I think a lot of it's going to depend on like what the craft distilleries do.
Yeah.
Like, all the big distilleries seem to have, for the most part, banded together. You know what I mean? Where the craft distilleries, they have this, this need. It's more than a want; it's a need to set themselves apart. You know what I mean? They haven't made the name of Wild Turkey Maker's Mark. You know what I mean? Like they have to set themselves apart, but at the same time, are they going to distance themselves from all the other distilleries because of it, and create more of a bashing between brands as far as, instead of a camaraderie.
Yeah, I don't really see that happening. I think that if bourbon continues the trend that it's on, I think that the craft distilleries will do all right. I think they will be mildly successful. I think that your major distilleries are going to be, where the main attention goes, just like it is now. It's just going to be at a bigger level. But the more money that's being made, you're going to see a greater interest from the parent company. And the bad thing about that is, especially with some of the companies that are larger conglomerates, is it becomes more of a commodity than a craft. And my concern is that the more money this industry makes, the more the attention goes to that. And I hope that's not the case. I hope that things kind of stay.
As long as the major people who make the money, we're talking Four Roses, we're talking Wild Turkey, we're talking
Buffalo
Trace, and Heaven Hill, and as long as those ones set the standards, the craft distilleries are going to have to follow suit.
Yeah, but 3 of those 4 that you named are foreign owned. I mean, that's Campari. And
right now they're foreign owned. But they still have roots in here in USA.
Yeah,
there is one craft out there that I know we've been talking about. Beam and Pit. Kyle, have you had any new Riff?
Yes, I have.
Single barrel or bonded?
The single barrel, or sorry, the regular bonded 100 proof. I have a single barrel. I haven't cracked it open yet.
What'd you think of it? Just curious.
New Riff that you like.
I really love it. The new Riff. Oh, that's a whole new.
What do you think, DJ? I know you've got one.
All right. So here's okay. I'll be honest. I first got the new Riff single barrel. It was a bourbon R pick, and I'd heard good things about it. And I placed the order on seal box, and I ended up getting it, and got a little bit later than I wanted, but that's fine. That's fine. No rush. My initial thoughts when I first nosed it was like, this noses a lot more than a 4-year. Okay, it came across more like a 6-year than a 4-year. But not just that, it had more sweetness than grain. Okay.
Yep.
So now I'll be honest with you, it does have some youth to it.
Yep. Youth shows up in the palate for me.
But it's a palatable youth. It reminds me of, in some ways, if you know how you can have a more palatable younger rye than you can a younger bourbon. Okay.
Yep.
That's what I feel like is going on with New Riff. I feel like it's a more palatable younger bourbon than you find with some of the others. Like, for example, I had Wyoming when it started coming into the area, and I was impressed with it being craft. I was like, okay, this tastes like craft, but it tastes like good craft. Okay.
Yeah.
New Riff was better than
I think
that.
Bourbon Pursuit kind of hit it on the head when they said, if you were to taste that blind,
You
wouldn't
wouldn't.
say
That's
this
for
is good for a craft distillery.
Yeah.
Or,
Right.
this is good for a new product, but it's going to be
It's
better.
good.
Like,
Right.
It's
was
good.
just straight,
Period.
this is
There's,
good.
There's no comma after that, and that's their
There's
first
no
stuff.
clarifying anything. Like, it's just
And that's where
good.
I come in. I don't drink bourbon on the regular. I drink wine, and I love bourbon wine. I love bourbon beer, but bourbon on its own, I'm still coming new into. And yeah, he's calling me out right now. That Russell Reserve rye is really good.
It is.
But I do the bourbon 1000 Stories. The red wine is amazing. I absolutely love
Robert
Bell Mead's stout.
Stuff.
I absolutely love some of the other ones that I can't think of off the top of my head because I've been drinking way too many shots.
1050.
Sipping on shots, I should say. But New Riff is amazing. Like, if you can get a bottle of it, I know it's hard to get, but it is absolutely that whole
Sealbacks has 3 barrels
It
in
was like
stock
cotton
right now,
candy
I
in
think.
your mouth.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be honest. I mean, for the price, okay, so the New Riff is like $55-$60, whatever. I mean, it was cool for a one-time purchase and a good experience. Okay. Would I rather spend $55 on a Russell's Reserve single barrel private selection? Yes. Yep. But it was cool to try something different and to see that there is good 4-year whiskey out there. That's not just 4-year rye, because 4-year rye is not bad, but 4-year bourbon, you don't find it that good. I would love to see what New Riff tastes like in another 4 years, because it's probably going to be pretty freaking good. I mean, I'm just being honest with you.
As my grandpa would say, there's big paws on the puppy. Like you like the framework and the DNA is there for that to be really, really good whiskey.
If that was $25, I'd be worried about Wild Turkey 101. I mean, but
I mean, and they're making a distillery every night. And credit to them, they didn't put out a young 2-year. Like they waited 4 years. Like, I mean, they did it the way you're supposed to do it. So
right. Yep. So New Riff is doing a good job. Yep.
But I'm with you, Dave. Like if I go into a store and they have some Russell's picks or some Four Roses picks, like that's what I'm walking out with. Like,
I mean,
I'll pass that up above a lot of the allocated stuff and whatever else. Like,
I'm into that.
Absolutely.
If they have one of those, then I'm on board. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to think about it.
And now with the Old Weller Antique, or now I guess it's just Weller 107 or whatever they call it. With that price going up
$50 retail.
Yeah. I mean, there is no more competition in my mind. It's like a Weller pick now is kind of like, I mean, I guess if you're one of these weeded bourbon junkies, that's fine. But yeah, I've had a lot of Wellers and they range from meh to, it's pretty good. I've never had a Weller 107 that has blown my mind. That's just me. I've had people send me a lot of samples. Yeah, sorry, I just haven't had one that's blown me away yet.
So one thing, like I definitely agree with that. You know what I mean?
I mean, at the price back when it was $35 or whatever, okay, I'll give you that. But at $55,
right, like that's a lot harder to swallow.
Well, and that's going to be the MSRP on it. So now you're going to start seeing it for
$75, sure.
89,
$50,
79.
yeah. Yep.
And, Roses is going up this year too.
That's
it is.
a sad,
Unfortunately.
sad story.
And the barrel allotment's going down. So there's going to be fewer Roses barrels put out.
So one good thing I will say real quick about the 107 is the barrel proof on those are usually like 113 to 115.
Yeah,
So,
there ain't a lot of cutting it. I think the barrel entry proof on the Buffalo Trace weeded is 114.
114.
Right.
So which is right at what
like I
turkey
like a good weeded whiskey or a good weeded bourbon. But like the Bernheim, which is a weeded whiskey, I do really enjoy that. You know what I mean? But it's a 7-year whiskey. You know, it's not technically a bourbon because it's mostly wheat. But for like $40, I enjoy it. But
yeah, it when you start factoring price in, the game really changes.
Mm-hmm.
And back when Old Weller Antique was $35, it was a good deal. Do I think it was? I mean, I'm just maybe it's because I'm a turkey guy, but the 101 that I'm finding now, I would take that over the shelf 107. Maybe that's just me.
Right. I know, I agree. Like the regular 101 is super hard to beat.
Yeah,
especially for us, you know what I mean?
You get the store picks, okay, it's a different game because the right barrel, sure, okay, and that goes for any single barrel. But again, when you start throwing the price in there and you say, well, okay, well, like Bryant said, now the Old Weller Antique single barrels people could charge $80 for them because if the MSRP is 50, 55, whatever, and it's a barrel pick and it's got all the weeded hype and all this kind of junk.
Well, Mark just said a local dive bar or dive store near him is selling their OWA pick for $140.
Yeah, that's just stupid.
And
that's just stupid.
Why would you do that? Don't do it.
Like,
and not to stick up for Buffalo Trace a little bit, but you know, if Russell's is 55 or 60 and Four Roses is $60 and you know, Knob Creek is 45 and, you know, Kentucky Spirit is this, like, if you're doing a Weller Antique single barrel pick for your store, bringing it into that $50-$55 range is just putting it in competition with, you know, other single barrels. Now, whether that's juice you want or whether that's, you know, it's not what I like. I mean, I don't want to say I dislike it.
Up their game some because with the little screw cap and it's got Johnny Walker screw cap and it just kind of the bottle. It looks like a Scotch bottle and I don't know. Again, I'm a big turkey fan. Don't everybody hate me, but Weller is not my thing. I don't like Weller 12. I don't like Weller Reserve. The 107's all right. You can find good picks every once in a while, but man.
I had an old bottle Weller 12 the other day and it tasted like sweet tea. Like it was just syrupy.
To me, I look at a Weller 12 bottle and I'm like, what turkey can I get with this? That's pretty much what I think of that. Sorry.
This is how I feel about it.
But I know what you mean. Like regular Russell's, even just a regular off the shelf Russell single barrel is, I really enjoy them and it's really hard to beat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's in that $60, $70 price range, which is definitely in that premium category without going to the crazy, you know, $100, $200 limited edition stuff. But like, I would take this over a lot of the limited edition stuff out there without hesitation.
Absolutely.
Right there. Amen. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm telling you, I mean, I hate to keep plugging it, but you know, Jamie Ferris picked an amazing barrel here. And I like I said, I've had 2 samples of this that 2 different folks had sent me. And I've got my notes stored in a drawer because I was going to review it off the notes. And I'm like, you know, I think I want to get a bottle for myself and do this the right way. And so I'm going to look forward to the next few weeks, putting this down and getting more notes and writing a review, because I'm telling you, blind, I really think I would choose this over the Booker 30th. I'm not kidding you. It's just
So one thing I want to touch on before we get out of here is, from your experience, both of you, Brian, have you done any barrel picks?
No, not something I've had the opportunity to be involved with yet. However, I am going up with the Columbia Bourbon Collective, the Russells that I had earlier. End of February, March, we've got picks lined up.
don't forget about ours.
Well, I'm getting to it. I'm going through the calendar. Buffalo Trace 1792 new Riff, and I think we were trying to get a turkey date nailed down, but I think they just got flooded. I think they're still trying to hammer out dates. And then May 6th, provided my wife doesn't give birth on May 6th, because she's due April 22nd. So it'll be tight. Maybe I can deadhead up there on a plane and back the next day. Lucky enough to go up with Dave and a couple of the other Rare Bird patrons May 6th and pick 2 turkey barrels, right?
Well,
2?
That's right. We're going to be there for the tour, and we're going to do 2 picks. I think one's going to be a patron exclusive, and then we got the one that Adam and I are working on. But it's going to be a good time. I'm very, very much looking forward to getting to do that with you. And it's probably going to be even better.
Yeah, I was about to say the Sunday night bottle share of all these turkey heads getting together is probably going to be pretty epic.
It'll be a nice time. Yeah.
Yep.
So, do you think that they roll out kind of 2 questions in one? A, how does Wild Turkey and Russell's do the Russell's Reserve single barrel program? Like, how do they pick those barrels for that? And second, do you think they roll out, and I use they as in more of a general term of the different distilleries, roll out different / better barrels for different groups?
And I'll go first. And for the first one, I'm not sure how they do it. I've never been on a turkey pick at the Rick House, but everybody I've been, they said Eddie puts out 8 or 9 or 10 barrels. And it's not like these are your 3 and you pick these 3, or if you don't like these 3 and you don't want them, super, there's a bunch of other people behind them. Right. It's either Eddie or Bruce. He really takes his time. I think they only do 2 picks a day. And if you're still not finding something that you love, he'll help you find something. Now, to your second part, do certain people get, I don't want to say they pick a bunch of bad barrels over here for these folks. But when you get some of these, I hate to say elite, or, the well-known barrel clubs, and we all know who they are without naming them. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Jamie Ferris gets stuff put in front of him that, Joe's Bottle Shop from Boise or wherever, that they don't get an opportunity to pick some of that stuff. And as well they should. I mean, if you've got Bourbon Pursuit rolling in to pick a barrel, and you've got guys with podcasts that have 10,000 hardcore bourbon people listening every week, you'd be a fool not to put your best stuff in front of them, right?
Well, I think it depends on the distillery, and I think it depends on the person doing the pick. I think that if you are genuine and you're energetic and you have a genuine love for the brand, okay. For example, Dixon laid it out in a very nice letter, and exactly how it goes down when Jamie picks a barrel with Eddie at Wild Turkey. And he basically said that when Jamie goes to pick a barrel at Wild Turkey, he doesn't care about specs. He doesn't care about ages. He doesn't care about anything but just, walking around with Eddie, thieving some samples and finding a good barrel. And I think that Eddie appreciates that. I think he gets a lot of nerdy stuff on these picks. And I think it's refreshing to have someone come in and just says, hey, I just want to taste good bourbon, and I just want to find some barrels for my store. I think he likes that.
I would say like Jamie Ferris, with Lincoln Road, like he's been doing barrel picks way before barrel picks were even cool.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that Eddie picks up on that. And I'm just talking about Wild Turkey. So if you come in there and you're like asking a million questions and you're with this real large group and you're just like flooding them with stuff, I think he's going to be like, kind of like, yeah, I'm just kind of waiting for the next one. I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for him, but somebody else comes in there and says, hey, let's go taste some good bourbon. I think he probably likes that more than it. Like I said, Dixon laid it out in that letter. You have groups that come in and they're real touristy. That's going to be a different experience than someone that's just like a couple people coming in and they're real genuine and they just want to go tasting barrels and they don't care about specs and this kind of stuff. I think it's going to be two different experiences. And that I'm just talking about Wild Turkey. I know I had a conversation with someone that's a part of a pretty well-known group a couple days ago. I'm not saying any names, but they're very selective in the barrels that they choose. And I think in some of these distilleries, and I'm not going to say names, they roll like, let's say 3 barrels out. And they say, here are your 3 to pick from.
Buffalo Trace.
And no, actually it's not. But anyway, and they say, here are your 3 barrels. And so they taste these 3 and they say, okay, we don't like any of these 3. We'd like to taste more. And they say, yeah, but these are your 3. And they're like, yeah, well, we're not going to buy them then. And they're like, wait a minute. No, you have to pick one of these 3. And they're like, well, I guess we're not doing barrel picks with you guys anymore. Because.
And they say, that's fine. The next person will.
Yeah. And that's because, they were looking for something special and special wasn't there that day. But the distillery wasn't willing to accommodate them. Whereas with like Wild Turkey with Eddie wants you to be satisfied. So if you don't like what he puts in front of you, he's not offended. He's like, hey, I got more. And he did the same thing with my pick. He was like, hey, when we had the 5 that we were tasting, he said, now, if you don't like any of these 5, because I'd already narrowed it down to 2 or 3. He was like, if you don't like any of these 5, I've got plenty more we can go through. And I'm like, no. I want to work with what I've whittled down here. But someone else might have been like, no, you know what? I don't like any of these. Let's keep going. And Eddie will be like, sure, let's do it. And I think that's what makes Wild Turkey a little bit different than some of the other distilleries.
I hate to say it, but that's what makes bourbon different than every other. Kyle called out a distillery. I'm not going to say any names, but
I have no problem dropping names. That's fine.
But
I don't buy their juice anyway, so
I don't blame you. There's something to be said when a master distiller or even their underlings and they say, look, we get it. Every taste is different and you don't like our 5 we pulled out. Let's pull out 5 more. And that's what gives me hope about this whole bourbon thing. There's a major history behind it and everyone talks about the money and the profit that's going into it. But then you have the older generation that's saying, hey, this is how we run it. This is how we do it. You don't like it, get out. And I hope to God, and I'm hoping on a whole greater program that the younger generation fall in line. Because
it's tough. There's like I mentioned before, there's a lot of money running around, and anytime you start getting attention financially, things change. I do think that you're going to have some distilleries that have long generations of history that are going to try to keep things going the way they always had been to the best that they can. But we'll just have to see. We'll have to see what the future brings. All I care about really is Wild Turkey. So I feel confident with Bruce and Joanne. So I think we're gonna.
Yeah, you got your distillery, and I got mine. If you heard me talk, I have my distillery.
I'm gonna have to sign off, y'all. I'm at 1%, and this phone is just about to absolutely 100% kick the bucket.
It's been a good talk, though.
It's been great,
guys. We covered topics.
I think we went longer than we thought, but David, always enjoy spending time.
Sure, man.
Look forward to future adventures. And Kyle,
hope I didn't talk your ears off, guys. Sorry.
No, that's why you're here. That's why you're here.
Never.
All right.
Enjoy that Kentucky owl. All right. See you guys.
Cheers.
Good night, guys. Appreciate you.
All righty. Y'all have a good one.
David, was it? No, Mark. Mark said, do you buy a flat fee for the barrels, or is it out of how many bottles? So basically, when you buy a barrel, if it's half full, you're saying I am buying all the bottles in this barrel. So if those bottles cost the store $45 a piece, however many bottles that barrel fills is what you're buying at $45 per bottle. So you're not saying, okay, it's, flat $7,000 per barrel. Now, if you're doing it wholesale, that's a little bit different because, excuse me, say like MGP, right? If you buy 10 barrels, 100 barrels, 1,000 barrels, whatever it is, they say, okay, you want this mash bill, this age, the price is going to be $2,500 per barrel. If you get those bottles or those barrels, and there's 3 barrels in there that are completely empty, you still paid $2,500 a piece for those barrels. So, some of those guys, like, they have to factor that into their price. Whereas a store, if they go to a Russell's pick, they know that they can sell this at MSRP, say at $65 a piece. It's $65 a piece, whether there's 30 bottles in that barrel or 200 bottles. So, that's one of the things that,
It's great. I mean, you go by per barrel instead of per bottle. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
If they said the Elijah Craig barrel was short, I might question that. Like I said, we did an Elijah Craig pick at Heaven Hill, and the bottle price was the bottle price. I mean, there's no, there's no different on it. Whiskey Dick in the house, Bourbon Insane, Adam Terry, David Schweibold, what's up, buddy? I mean, we got a lot of players in here, man. James Dellinger, Mark Andrew, Karina 1, Jim Tisak. What's up, homie?
I said hi earlier, but hi.
All kinds of stuff, man.
Hey, if we're saying your name wrong, because we've had a lot of discussion. How do you say Tisak?
Tisak?
Tisak. We've been questioning it, so please shoot us an email. I don't know how to say it.
Asking for a friend said his decade's worth the premium. If you got the change to spare, it is a really good bottle. If you don't, and there's, like I said, like 2 Russell's picks or some Russell's picks or 4 Roses picks or something, then I would probably go with the picks personally. But if that's your option and you have the coin to spare, then it's a great bottle for sure. So, James Richard, what's up, buddy? Jim,
Hey, how do we say your name? We still don't get it. I'm so sorry. I probably butchered it at least. Tight sack.
So,
Tight sack?
Bill over at the Whiskey Dictionary, which is just the Whiskey Dick, which I think is fucking awesome for a name. We were drinking, the Long Branch, the Rare Breed, the Russell's Reserve Rye,
and the barrel. 101. Don't ever forget it.
The Russell's Reserve single barrel, and for a short little period of time, we were drinking the Booker's 30th. So I got a little bit of a stuffy nose, so I had to save some of that. Like tight sack. So Tisak. Tisak, right?
Okay, I'll give you props.
So anyway, guys, we appreciate all you guys. Do you guys have any more questions before we hop off of here? So we can, dude, the 30th is really good, Bill. It really is. I really enjoy it. It's much sweeter than your normal Bookers. So, we've done a lot tonight. Yeah, we have. I'm feeling pretty good.
I started with a margarita. The bourbon was better.
Yeah, she had a margarita at dinner, so she's doing good.
And kids. Sorry, we're reading So you have to like forgive our delay.
Wild Turkey Revival. So, that's a hard one to answer. I really, really enjoy it. Where, sorry, I had to send a thing real quick. The Wild Turkey, it is really good. It is really rich and oily and wet, if that makes sense. If finished bourbons are your thing, I say go for it 100%. If finished bourbons aren't your thing, then it is definitely wet finished bourbon. You're drinking my bourbon.
Hmm? I thought that was mine. No, you stole my glass.
Was the 30th worth it? I think retail on that was what, $200? I mean, you could get 3 regular Bookers for that price, or 3 Russells, or 4 Roses picks. So, again, it's if your wallet has that coin to spare, then again, it's a great bottle. If I had the chance to pick up a Booker's 30th at retail, I would probably do it, just because there's not going to be that. You're never going to get that again. You know what I mean? Like, the Booker's releases, batch to batch is a little bit different, but at the same time, they're all pretty close in line. They're different, but they're in line, the same flavor profile. Booker's 30th, you're not going to get that again. John got some of the MC's picks, so that's fucking awesome. Yeah, they had, honest to God, the 1792 full proof pick that MC's had was a total cherry bomb to the moon and back. I mean, it is crazy. So,
sorry, I'm reading some comments and I'm giggling.
You traded the Booker's 30th for a George T. Stagg. I would say that was probably a good call on your
all the way.
Yep, definitely. I would second that motion. 9-year Dickel. Dude, Dickel has some good stuff. They really do. The George Dickel stuff. If you have some bottles that say they were whiskey from Tennessee and it's a sourced product, chances are it's Dickel. And honest to God, like, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Been to the distillery.
From what I've heard, they've pretty much sold all of their 14-year and older stock at this point to NDPs. Got their 4 Roses.
You can never go wrong with 4 Roses. That's my God-given. I will never say anything against 4 Roses.
The Dickel 12, dude, that was insane. I did not expect that. I actually went back for a pour of that the other night, and I was like, man, this is still, like, knowing what it is really good. So that's, I don't know. I was not expecting the Dickel 12 to be that good, but it really was. And like I said, like, a lot of your source stuff from Tennessee is that Dickel. So Whiskey Dick said thumbs up. I agree with you, buddy. Thumbs up before you leave. So there was like 50 something people on tonight.
We did have at the peak about 57 people.
So that was awesome, man.
Sorry, I missed some of it. I have kids. We have kids.
We have kids.
You got to run them down. Tell them to be quiet.
Bourbon say Knob Creek picks are some of my favorites. Dude, I have really been digging on a lot of the Knob Creek picks lately. She definitely has. She loves that nutty flavor.
Dude, but then there's 4 Roses. And I'm having a hard time.
She's having like an internal battle.
It is.
No, dude, like I said, I've really been digging on some Knob Creek lately here. And what's funny is if you put like a blind tasting, Knob Creek usually does really well in a blind tasting, which just goes to show you, like, it really is good bourbon. So
there's something to said about the 10 recipes, though.
Yeah, the 10 recipes of 4 Roses is hard to beat.
There's something for everybody.
Appreciate you, Mark. Thank you. Good turnout. Yeah, dude. 57 people. Like that's awesome. Eat turkey. Yep. And go to bed.
Agreed with the go to bed. I'm going to pour myself something yummy, and it's probably going to be Four Roses. And good night. I hope you all enjoyed the show.
That's awesome, Bill. I know that all too well. Carruthers, dude, Adam, I know you're local. Don't let out the secret, man. Carruthers, sorry, Carruthers.
I was like, what are you saying? Carruthers is absolutely amazing.
Carruthers and Elixir are some of my favorite local.
Yeah, and
local
our local bourbon shop. We're not going to say their names.
I just did.
Bill's.
Carruthers and Elixir, and there's
Yes.
Bill's in Fayetteville,
And there's Bill's.
which we live in a small town. We're like 15 minutes from
we
Jack
don't
Daniels.
acknowledge Bill's. They're around the corner from us. We absolutely love them.
So anyway, guys, we appreciate every one of you. Cheers.
I'm empty. So have a nice night, and to more bourbon.
More bourbon. Woo! Cheers.